Hey guys, Lopes here, coming at you at Podcast Central here. Just wanted to make this quick video, just kind of tell you guys that this week's podcast is going to be a little bit different than it has been in the past. So obviously, we have a specific way of doing things in terms of the format of the podcast. But this week, with NBA trade deadline stuff, and there was a lot of it, it's going to be mainly focused on that. So wanted to get this out there for you guys, just kind of give you guys a fair warning. Obviously, if you've seen the description or even the title of this video, you know that this is going to be talking about the Super Bowl. So I wanted to get my thoughts on the game out there as quickly as possible for you guys. I know a lot of you guys care about that. So just wanted to let you guys know, and hope you enjoy the video. And so now, let's get right into it. We're going to talk about the Super Bowl first. So, obviously, this past Sunday was Super Bowl 56, and it was a really good game. This past postseason for football has really been awesome. I mean, they're the first week, the wild card week, and division week even had, some really kind of stinkers. They had some games where, it was really, not all that great. Some blowouts here and there, but for the most part, from the championship week on, and even some in the divisional week, there have been a lot of really good games in a row, and the Super Bowl was no exception. We're definitely ending the year on a high note. This game was back and forth the entire time. I honestly, I really had no idea who was going to win the whole game. It really could have gone either way. It wasn't necessarily a shootout, but it wasn't really a defensive battle either. It was kind of that game that was right in the middle. Sometimes it felt like a shootout. Sometimes it felt like it was a defensive battle. So it was a really, really good game in terms of that. I think it had a little bit for everybody. But the Bengals, they did end up going down to the Rams. So the Rams win the Super Bowl 23-20 was your final score. And anyone who watched this game, again, would probably tell you that it was so back and forth that either team could win it. And really both teams deserved to win it. The Bengals definitely, they showed that they deserved to be there. I know a lot of people, the popular betting pick was probably the Bengals. They were the underdog, and obviously they've been the underdog pretty much every game in the postseason this year. So certainly it was a popular choice to pick them this weekend with them being the underdog again. But, they showed up. They showed why they deserved to be there. Their defense played great pretty much all day, and I have to give them credit. The offensive line played really well, for about the first 2.5 quarters. Joe Burrow, obviously, he showed up. Really young quarterback. Obviously he's played in some big games, played in the national championship game, obviously, for LSU when he was in college. But, you never really know how young quarterbacks are going to respond to the pressure like this. But Joe Burrow responded really well. He was efficient. He didn't turn the ball over. He pretty much did everything that he could to win the game for his team. But the Rams, in the end, they were just too much. And, I feel like this game probably could have been more of a blowout than it ended up being. And the reason for that is obviously because, or at least one of the reasons for that, is obviously Odell Beckham Jr. Apparently tearing his ACL now. That story came out earlier today. We didn't obviously know last night what his injury was, but tearing his ACL supposedly in the second quarter of that game. He had already had a couple of catches, already had a touchdown at that point. He was really starting to exploit the Cincinnati defense. It was 13-3. Or 13-3. They did miss the extra point there on that second touchdown. But it was 13-3 at one point in favor of the Rams. So it was starting to kind of look like, if the Bengals offense didn't, really turn things around, the Bengals defense wasn't going to be able to hang. But that didn't happen, obviously, with the OBJ injury. The Rams, their offense suffered mightily because of it. The Bengals really did a great job after that injury. They kind of changed game plans. You could kind of see that, they weren't really rushing a lot of pass rushers. They were kind of dropping back into very, very heavy zone coverages, trying to kind of, stop Cooper Kupp from really taking over the game. And it was going to really be up to guys like Odell Beckham Jr. to kind of get open and take over because they weren't going to really let Cooper Kupp do that. But once Odell Beckham Jr. really left, they were able to rush the passer more, go a little bit easier on their coverages on the back end, and really focus on stopping the run game. And that change in their defensive plan really, really helped the Bengals throughout the second half to keep it close and come back in the game. And the Bengals, they essentially, once OBJ went down, they dared, guys like Ben Skoranek, guys like Van Jefferson, and, any of the other quite honestly, lackluster weapons that the Rams had to beat them, because they were going to double, they were going to triple Cooper Kupp. That's just what they were going to do. He's the Triple Crown winner. Of course you're going to do that. Tyler Higbee, their second leading receiver for the Rams, their tight end, was not available for this game. So basically, they dared all these other guys to beat them, and for the most part, they didn't really beat them. The Bengals, they shut down the run. Like I said, they were able to focus more on shutting down the run, and they did. They shut down the run. The running game for the Rams was absolutely useless. I'm going to be honest with you, nobody really stepped up for the Rams. I think the Bengals' game plan really did work. I know the final score may not show that, but it really worked. The Bengals' defense has surprised me all throughout the playoffs. They have played so well. By the numbers, they're not that great of a defense. On paper, they don't really have a lot of big stars or anything like that, but they've played really well all postseason long, so they really stepped up in this game. Although I will say, I'm sure it was a lot easier without OBJ. But, when it came down to it, when nobody was really stepping up for the Rams, Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp just said, all right, we're just going to do it ourselves. Even though Cooper Kupp was getting double-teamed and triple-teamed, like I said, Matthew Stafford threw it to him anyway, which with his time with Calvin Johnson in Detroit, I'm sure he was very used to. He's triple covered. I don't care. I don't have anybody else. So I'm sure Matthew Stafford felt right at home. And you know what? It worked. And Kupp scored the game-winning touchdown with about 1:30 left in the game. Ended up winning Super Bowl MVP. The Bengals couldn't get it going, and that was all she wrote. And, so big congrats to the Rams. Big congrats to Aaron Donald, Odell Beckham Jr., Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, Andrew Whitworth, all these amazing players that really deserved this Super Bowl, deserved that victory. Guys that have waited their whole careers to finally hold that Lombardi trophy in their hands. I just couldn't be happier for them. And also, by the way, safety for the Rams, Taylor Rapp, also proposed to his girlfriend after the game. So that's really cool. Congrats to them. But obviously, I honestly, I just couldn't be happier for Matthew Stafford. Seeing him win a Super Bowl after everything he went through in Detroit, it was honestly a little emotional for me. Like, I'm not ashamed to admit it. I was fighting back tears a little bit when he was getting interviewed right after the game, and me just kind of fully realizing, like, oh, he did finally win the Super Bowl. And, I know it's like, why is it that emotional? And it's because Matthew Stafford, honestly, he's been one of my favorite players in the NFL for years. I mean, I thought that he was a great quarterback in Detroit, and he just, there were down years, obviously, for him in terms of his statistics and everything, but I thought that when he had a decent enough team, he was able to, bring them over the top and, get them to the playoffs and everything like that. And, it's just been really sad and tough seeing him kind of go through this point in his career where nobody really believed in him, and everybody thought that, not everybody, but a lot of people thought that it was his fault that the Detroit Lions didn't have that much success. And it was really sad. And I went to a Pro Football Hall of Fame museum in Myrtle Beach a little while ago, and they actually, I don't know if any of you guys remember this game, but there was a game back at, I think, maybe like 2012. I can't remember exactly when this game was, but it was earlier in Matthew Stafford's career. He was playing the Browns, and he actually got his jersey torn in half on a sack, or not on a sack, but on an attempted sack, and he threw the game-winning touchdown pass anyway, and he also had a separated left shoulder, and he just played through it the whole, for a couple of plays or whatever it was. And you literally could see him after the game running off the field with, like, his left arm, like, down and hanging, and he's, like, hanging on to it, and he's like, oh, my God, he's so tough. He works incredibly hard, and I was just so happy to see him finally win one. That really, honestly, again, it made me a little bit emotional. Rumors are swirling, just kind of shift focus here. Rumors are swirling that Aaron Donald may retire after this season now. And, I guess selfishly as a fan, I don't really want to see him retire. But, I mean, there is really nothing left for him to prove at this point. 3-time Defensive Player of the Year. He's been probably the best defensive player in football for a decade. Now he's a Super Bowl champion. There's really nothing left for him to prove. And to me, he's already a first ballot Hall of Famer, especially with now a Super Bowl. So we'll see if he does end up retiring. Obviously, it would be sad as a fan to see him go, but obviously, that would be up to him and his family, of course, and we would wish him nothing but the best. But I'll say this, though. Imagine this Rams team next year. I mean, this Rams team is going to be really tough to stop next year, because you can imagine the team right now, right? Let's say that Aaron Donald doesn't retire, just for fun's sake, right? And OBJ, especially now with this injury, I think it's feasible to think that he would probably have to sign another one-year contract so that he can kind of reprove that he's healthy and everything. And I think that it makes sense for him to do that with the Rams already. So let's say he comes back, and even if he's not available for the first few games, he probably would end up being available for most of the season, given the timelines and everything like that for tearing your ACL these days. But imagine that these weapons already, with a healthy Tyler Higbee, with a healthy Robert Woods, and a healthy Tutu Atwell, who they drafted pretty high up in last year's draft, that was pretty much injured the whole year. And he was going to be, pretty heavily utilized in this offense before he got injured. So imagine all those weapons. Obviously, you'd still have the Triple Crown winner in Cooper Kupp. I don't know how you stop that offense at this point. So it's going to be a tough team to watch. And, for the Bengals, they showed that they deserved to be there. They showed that it wasn't a fluke that they got there, that they were among the best teams in the NFL. It's hard to ask your defense to play as well, or at least to play better, I would say, than the Bengals defense did last night, especially against the Rams and their great offense and the great quarterback and everything like that. But again, I keep coming back to this. I said earlier that the offensive line played well for the first 2.5 quarters. And it's true, they did play well for the first 2.5 quarters, but man, the last quarter and a half, it was absolutely brutal. Joe Burrow was sacked 7 times in the Super Bowl. That is tying now a Super Bowl record for the most sacks given up in the Super Bowl. But what was worse than that, definitely to me, I think that it's because Joe Burrow was sacked 6 times from the about midway through the third quarter mark on. He was sacked 6 different times. And honestly, anyone who watched this game, you could be the judge, but honestly, if you think that those sacks didn't affect the Bengals and their game plan and the momentum of the game, then I think you're just lying to yourself. I mean, I do. And by the way, also, on the last play of the game, Aaron Donald had Joe Burrow about 8 inches from getting thrown to the ground, and Joe Burrow just kind of happened to shovel the pass off. But if that had been a sack, that would have been the 8th sack of the game, the 7th sack from about the halfway point through the third quarter on, and it would have broken the record for most sacks given up in a Super Bowl. Like, these are not things that are flukes. This is a consistent underperformance of a very bad offensive line. And I think that this game really is a reminder that the Bengals, their rebuild is not complete right now. They really, really, really need to get some better offensive linemen to protect Joe Burrow. And, in terms of the game itself, they honestly had 2 big plays the whole game. They had a 46-yard catch from Jamar Chase, and they had a 75-yard touchdown catch by T. Higgins, which honestly, you could make the argument that shouldn't even have counted, because he grabbed Jalen Ramsey's face mask and threw him to the ground before eventually catching the ball and running it all the way to the end zone. So you can argue that one shouldn't even have counted. Now, obviously, there's arguments to say that it should have counted, but you can argue that it shouldn't have counted because obviously you're not supposed to grab another player's face mask. There were 2 big plays on offense the whole day, and obviously, Joe Mixon threw a touchdown pass, which was fun. That was obviously really cool to see. But for the most part, let's just say even 3. Let's count that as a big play. It was 3 big plays on offense the entire game. The Bengals offense wasn't really able to get going, and in large part it was because the offensive line was not able to protect Joe Burrow consistently. You know, Joe Mixon had a couple of nice runs, and again also had that touchdown pass, but again, the Bengals really just couldn't get it going on offense. And again, I think this game's a reminder that, you know, the Bengals still have a lot of work to do. They still have a lot to kind of build for their team. I think they really have, again, a lot of positions that they need to improve upon for them to really be, you know, among that top echelon of team consistently. You know, clearly they need a lot of offensive line help. They need some secondary help. You know, obviously the secondary played well throughout the playoffs, but Chidobe Awuzie, Eli Apple, and Mike Hilton aren't. They're just not going to get it done against, you know, top of the line receivers for years and years to come. It's just they got to get better with that. And, you know, they probably could use another pass rusher alongside Trey Hendrickson, because other than Trey Hendrickson, they don't really have much of a pass rush other than a couple of guys, you know, might get a sack here or there. But, you know, there's not really enough consistent pass rush other than from Trey Hendrickson. And also, I think Jesse Bates, their Pro Bowl safety, you know, I think he's also a free agent at the end of this year, if I'm not mistaken. So if he walks, are you know, what are you going to do then? Are you willing to spend $50 million to keep him around? Because if you're not, obviously he's going to walk. So then what do you do? Now you need more secondary than you would have needed otherwise. So, you know, obviously the Bengals still have a lot of work to do, but it's been a magical season for them. You know, you gotta think about this. Like, for the last 2 seasons before this one, the Bengals had 6 total wins. And now this year they went to the Super Bowl. Like, it's, again, a magical season. And it's been awesome to watch. And I hope they can get back to these heights in the years to come, because they are fun. They are a really, really fun team to watch. Joe Burrow is fun to watch. Jamar Chase is fun to watch. Their offense is really, really fun. And Zach Taylor is a great coach. This is the first time that the 2 youngest coaches in the NFL actually made the Super Bowl. I also think it might have been the first time that the 2 youngest coaches faced off against one another in the playoffs at all. Never mind the Super Bowl. So super cool. But, you know, obviously, again, I really hope that the Bengals can get back to these heights. But for the love of God, please get some more offensive line help. Please. Listen, I'm willing to admit it, okay? I was wrong this past draft. Jamar Chase was your guy. I get it. I was wrong. I am admitting it right here. But you don't have that excuse this year. You don't have it. You have a great tight end. You have 3 great wide receivers. You have a great running back. You have a decent defensive line, especially stopping the run. You know, with your first round pick this year, you have to go offensive line. You know, you have to go offensive line. And if you don't go offensive line in the first round, you've got to go offensive line with your second, your third, your fourth. You have to be able to draft at least 2 or 3 offensive linemen in your draft this year. You know, like, unless you know, you get to, you know, pick 31, which I think is what pick the Bengals would have, and there's somebody there you just can't pass up that fell. You know, a top 10 or a top 15 prospect that fell all the way to you at 31. Like, if you do that, then, you know, I understand, but still, like, you got to be able to get offensive line. You don't have the I need some more explosiveness on offense excuse this year. Please, for the love of God, protect Joe Burrow, because if you don't, he won't make it to 30. He'll be the next Andrew Luck, and none of us want that, because Joe Burrow is fantastic.
Hey guys, me again. Thank you so much for watching one of my clips from the Lopes Goes Last podcast. These clips are so much fun to do. I absolutely love making them, and I absolutely love doing them. And this podcast is my baby, so I really want this thing to grow, and I really want it to succeed. So if you did like what you see, please subscribe. Also hit that bell notification so you never miss any one of my episodes or one of my clips like this one. And please do also like and share these videos with your friends and your family so that we can make this thing grow as fast as possible. And I wanted to thank you again so much. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video and have a great rest of your day.